Now, the topic that we will be starting with today is going to talk about intent recognition, context. These are the two things which are very important for you to sort of put in or to be mindful of when you're creating your search queries, specifically using the language part, which is your keywords. So the important thing that I've recognized and realized that anytime that we are inserting those keywords together, either as single words or group of words, we have to be mindful that the search engine is mechanically inclined. It's not human. So it has certain intelligence built into it. And even with all that they're putting in or improving in the algorithmic way, still it is mechanically inclined. So, for the search engine to recognize or interpret your intent behind what you have written may not be as accurate. Okay. So, we certainly have to, meet the search engine halfway in ensuring that whatever we have written has got enough context or enough reference of words that gives it a strong meaning or it is linguistically correct at least. So that part is actually somewhat covered from the search engine side by running a technology which is part of artificial intelligence, but more to do with text recognition, and it has the ability to perform certain intelligent tasks for language interpretation. And that's what we are going to talk about. Reason we cover this topic is because at the time when we are writing our search queries, we are not as focused, um, not realizing that the search engine may interpret it differently, which means that you would still get the results. You would get tons of, you could probably get hundreds of results. But that is not as satisfactory because when you look at those results closely, you will find that it's been interpreted somewhat differently. So, something in Latin we call consensus ad idiom, which means meeting of minds. There is a big disconnect between meeting of minds when the semantics kick in. Eh? So semantics or artificial intelligence of word placement is what we'll be talking about now. Let's start with the slides because I think we do have few good ones to share with you, and therefore I'm going to start running the slide. We call this topic textual semantics in indexed content pages. Now, what is semantics? Semantics is basically is a branch of linguistics. There's a definition to it, but to explain it more concisely, semantics is the understanding of textual words in any language, which can be interpreted uh, using the three different kinds of intelligences, or you could say that interpretation of someone's speech as they speak something and something that they write. Both approaches would have three elements or three basic elements of intelligence. One we call formal in semantics. The other one is lexical semantic and conceptual semantics. Now, formal is the logic of using words or the sense or the meaning or give it that extra sort of um, a body of language which would make sense out of words. That is formal semantics. Lexical semantics is actually literally about the words that you use or how you put those words in a sequence or together. So that is lexical. That means fundamentally it is going to default to the root word or it is going to find a synonym or alternative to the same word because it has that dictionary built into it. Randy is here. Hi, Randy. Welcome. Good to have you in the class. I got your note and it was still okay because we got the recordings that's available to you. So anyway, good to have you back. Let me know if you can hear me and your mic is all right and everything on your side is working good. So the lexical semantic I was talking about has to do with the word meanings, okay, and word relationships. Conceptual is on the cognitive side, meaning that it is, that sense of understanding in what way or in what, especially when you are using words that has to do with expressing your sentiments, opinions, or your emotions are translated that and when we are talking um, we are talking about speech to text or someone speaking some words, the conceptual semantic has got that recognition of the pitch, tone, and how you are expressing yourself. So all these concepts are part of the science of linguistics, and it is applied extensively and heavily in algorithms. Okay. Now I'm going to move from semantics to give you, first of all, to for you to understand that the search is looking to find what is the idea or intent, or what is it, what's in your mind, basically. So it is probing by just looking at the words and the sentences. Words relationship is important. The sequence in which they are set is important. All of this is going to be the complication that we will have to figure out, or for the machine to figure out. And any part that is missing or that needs to be visualized or conceptualized on the search engine side, they will actually insert that idea or add to what you have written expressively in your search query. So anything that is applied that would be an additional set of context or something that is considered by the search engine from its own wisdom to be applied, it's going to do that. And that is called implied concepts or implied context. That's where you would find that it would connect with what you have expressed. And we'll get a better understanding of what it means. Sometimes it could be a barrier. Other times it could be supportive or it could be assistive in nature. But in either way, we need to be very cautious about, or we have to foresee if something is not as complete with the edit context given to your wordings, then you can be sure that the search engine is going to add to it or give it its own sense. So we have to be aware of that. And sometimes it could be a barrier also. So we want to avoid that sense to be added or to be imposed on those search queries. So we will find ways to steer out of that situation to make it non-biased. Um, Coming back to semantics, there is a few terms that you need to be acquainted with, terms that are applied extensively on every single search query. I mean, there's different layers to what could be the different technologies that are working under the umbrella of semantics, but few are of most important because they are basics. For instance, the concept of stemming. Stemming is when you are, and it's best explained by the examples that we have in front. You could see that, put, my cursor is moving on this word cheaper. So if we are using something in our text query, the word cheaper, and the search needs to interpret it somewhat in the sense where some words may be mixed or it is not able to understand it, it's going to default to something called root word. So the root word to cheaper would be cheap. Then cheapen could be another variations. But you could see that it is not, replacing the word, it's just defaulting onto the root word. So no replacement, no synonyms, no similar words are changed. Singular and plural is of no consequence at the time when the search is doing stemming. Lemmatization is another process which is, and everything is working simultaneously. Isha, um, are we doing aesthetics yet? Uh, I don't think we've started on it. There is a chapter on this using statics, so we don't want to go ahead of the whatever we are discussing right now. That has to do with the concept of or the topic that we are discussing. It would be nice if we can just stick to that. All of this is going to come later. It's not that we are going to ignore the aesthetic part. And then we have others in the class, they may not even know what aesthetic is. So you may be a little ahead so that, once you got the concepts that we are discussing cleared up, then we will definitely talk about. And aesthetics has nothing to do with the concept that we are discussing right now. Thanks. Now, lemmatization is another process which substitutes words or finds something that could be more relevant or can be replaced by, using its own vocabulary to substitute it. Um, so if the example here is wake, it can also mean wake up or a vigil. So here the cognitive, lexical, and formal semantic, all of it is working together. So wake up or a vigil or a funeral. So these are the words that are replaceable or that could be added. See, anytime you see something that, where you have written a query with certain wordings, maintaining that particular sequence without disturbing the sequence of words, it may just simply substitute those words. And that is very common when you see your results. You would you would be able to know that it is a lemmatization process happening. Then there is another concept, we call it ontology. Ontology is been there in the algorithms. It's been around, or it's been a recognized concept. But let me tell you what ontology. Ontology is a relationship between individuals, human, non-human, and entities. Um, Anything that creates a relationship. It could be formal, informal relationship, or it could be your colleagues, families, and friends, and so on. And obviously, when the social media started to, gain that recognition and that momentum and the volume of data that started coming, the ontology really got the boost and it became very important and quite prominent actually. So the relationship of something, remember internet, sometimes not the internet itself, because internet is a communication means of exchanging digital information, but specifically the search engines and the browsers or the software side has the ability to record all that you are doing as your activity on the browser, and relationship between the browser and the search engine together. They're collecting a bunch of data on you. And some of the information you give willingly, some you give unknowingly, some information you're given a choice to make it public or keep it private, whatever it may be. You are not in command of um, you know, knowing or consciously understanding what you're giving away. So what happens is that all that data that's floating around has not only been recorded at a history, but there's a relationship they make between you as a user and those that you interact with. Like I said, human or non-human, it doesn't matter. So that is kind of a ontology which is creating those relationships. Um, if we want to look at some of the examples of ontology, here is uh, something that's searched for Bart Simpson, I believe. And when you do that search, and just because we are using it as an example, I want you to just focus on the elements like Bart Simpson, for instance. If you're going to query Bart Simpson, it knows that Bart Simpson owns a cat. There are two, uh, they've got the children, you've got, I don't know their names, but siblings who owns this dog, and the grandfather and the wife and all that. See, these relationships are going to start to come up. Either they will be available as specialized searches or background searches, or they might be collected as something which has been used on social media as you know public information, or some pages that remain in the public domain but point to that relationships which is created or which is established through searches. There is even relationship between the product and yourself as a user. What is it that you are buying or looking for? Whether it is seasonally inclined, whether it is something that is your favorite that you go to every single time to find something as a favorite marketplace to shop from, and so on. Example of semantics and lemmatization. Now, this is a search query, and they have used an operator in title here. But I don't want you to, worry about in title or what it means or why it's there. Just for a minute, just ignore this. Let's just focus on the words or the query that is using all these different words. John Turner, I believe, is the name. Carpenter, must be a carpenter, must own a wood shop or somewhere. There's a woodworking job that he does. And then there is a brochure you're looking for. So probably there's a shop and he's a carpenter and, looking for John Turner specifically. So all these are context to John Turner for what you want to look John Turner for its shop and the brochure. Look at the results that show up. You will find invariably that the word brochure is substituted by the word catalog. In this one, it is actually added a word. Instead of wood shop, it is using the word woodworking. So it's a substitution. Again, woodworking, the word pamphlet is again something which can be substituted for brochure or has similarity to brochure. And then there is carpenter's shop, and so it continues. And at the same time, there could be a bit of a confusion or ambiguity in how these two words, John Turner, is, I guess, it is mixing the word like wood and John as if it is the word John Wood used for the name. So there could be James. James is a name diminutive. Um, but they're using the word wood, which is what is highlighted. So it picked up the word wood, but it is part of the name James. Then you got John and John. So all that, I mean, you can just keep looking and you would keep finding words which are not exactly what you've inserted in the search box. So that is what I'm trying to explain. And I'm giving you an idea of what the stemming and lemmatization does to your query. So when we are doing singulars and plurals, I want you to understand, especially Listy, for you to know that singulars and plurals don't matter as much depending on the level of restriction you have created through putting them against or alongside the search operators, which may be very finicky or maybe extreme restrictors that would not allow any flexibility as to whether you can allow for those wordings to be substituted or singulars or plurals to be identified separate. There could be these flexibilities, like for example in URL, for instance, as an operator, if I use in URL colon sign, you would find that it would be very finicky and very specific, and it would go to the literal word itself as being whatever you've put it in for, like as a singular or a plural. If it's a singular, it's going to stick to the singular. If it is plural, it's going to do the same. But on the other hand, there could be other operators that would allow a slight flexibility. For instance, in text, in title, they would be slightly more flexible. Now, why they are doing that or why it is so, and why there is a confusion when people start to read about these operators, they don't explain to what extent singularity or plurality of words is accounted for or is differentiated. Um, and because of it, they use a blanket statement saying that Google search does not care about singulars or plural words. But that is not the case because there are so many restrictions. There could be quotation marks enclosing certain wordings, which means that those wordings have to remain intact as as having exact mirror replica or exact mirror of what is placed inside of the quotes to be matched, which makes it more strict and more restricted. So it all depends on what type of search operator you're using. And therefore, singular and plural are not something that we can be where, we can just make a loose statement saying that Google will recognize it either or, that's exactly how it's going to work. It's not a blanket certificate of any sort. So that should clear up few things. And as we go further with creating those situational queries, or we're going to use those restrictors, you will get to learn a lot more because I'm going to be mentioning when you can be used, which of those operators would allow you to, or which operators are less strict versus more strict of singulars and plurals. So moving further, did you know that the search engine is capable of or has intelligence beyond these linguistic parts? They have actually compiled listings of things like zip codes, like certain numbers that you're going to type. Let's say for Florida, Orange County, if I type 32839 or 32835, it knows that it is not just a number, but it's also a zip code. And the priority would be to consider it as a zip code and not as a number. So it has those bias, remember bias, I'm talking about implied bias. These lists are several and far too many to explain right now, but I can give you a few more examples. Like, for instance, phone codes, uh, area codes. It knows all of them. Names, diminutives, like this one, Beth is, no, the search knows that it is a Christian name, a short name for Elizabeth. The search engine would know that right away. So when you're typing something in a casual way, if you use the word like Beth Mary Jones, for instance, it knows that Beth could also be Elizabeth, that could be the Christian name. So it's going to start to use those listings to compare with and to fetch those conveniently available, easy to interpret lists of things and and use its own magic to do it. Okay. Okay, today I'm going to take a break slightly early because I have to make a phone call. So once we start again, then we will finish it, go all the way till the end of the class. So let's just take a 10 minutes right now, if you don't mind. I'm going to be back in exactly 10 minutes, and then we'll continue with semantics. Right. Isha, I wasn't speaking, so there was nothing we could hear. Uh, I think we still have maybe a few minutes uh, just to finish up the 10 minutes, I guess. I was being quiet. We'll start in a bit. Let's continue. If you're all back and ready, we'll get going with it. So, how is the voice right now? Isha, can you hear me now? The voice clear? Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, so let's look at some of the ways in which there could be a bit of a confusion for the search engine, where someone is just writing the search queries using words, rephrasing certain search queries because they're not bringing you the correct results. You may want to look at um, how the meanings or some of the ways in which search would find it difficult to make that decision to know what your intent is. So variations of semantically similar conversational sentences. This is just an example we are sharing with you to give you an idea of how two people can be writing something having the same sort of uh, thought of what they want to convey, but it may be written differently by two different people. So, as an example, when two sentences have the same meaning, the bird is bathing in the sink versus birdie is washing in the water basin, you'll probably get two different search results. So I guess depends where you are. When you're writing something, you may use the assistive technology or predictive technology, the technology that the search engine keeps delivering to you. It's starting from the time that you start to write a query, and while you're typing something, it's going to give you a drop down, and you know what I'm talking about. So all that could be of help just to know if you are phrasing it correctly. Because whatever is in the drop down usually is assisting you in defining or putting those words in the best sequence or the frequently used words to build those phrases, which is commonly understood by the search engine as having somewhat similar or same meaning. So, it might be helpful. So we've got these two ways of writing the search queries. Then we've got another example when sentences mean the same, but some critical details are missing. So if you're looking for a news, or if you're writing something that it could be a main caption or the headline of a news, you may discover that the way you've written it may bring you results that are coming from different sources. So if You wrote something like Army troops attempt to invade Kabul in April of 2010 versus US Army invaded the city. So attempt to versus invaded are two strong words that would change the meaning, and perhaps the other side of the world, or maybe some of the news agencies may have written it using the word invaded versus using the words attempt to invade. Then you've got an example here. I guess this is the last one where the two sentences mean the same thing but do not answer the critical question. So, when you're writing your questions or when you're putting something as an inquiry, you may want to look at how you have phrased it. So, John said he is a witness but not a suspect. It would probably mean the same thing if someone wrote it like John says he is not a suspect anymore. So, it's just the way of how you're going to phrase something or use your words carefully enough uh, to make it appear as, first of all, it's not a good idea to write very long search queries with long words or add, unless you have added a context to give it enough support to bring that meaning or give it the best meaning for the search to understand, there'll always be a confusion. So there could be an issue of semantics in these situations as well. What the search engine textual database is doing at the time when it is using its own wisdom or its collective wisdom, understanding how people usually phrase certain questions, or where some terms are more popular than other, or some phrases together has more of a higher ranking. It is only because of MLI, which means that the search engine has the ability to learn from the user behavior certain attributes or certain characteristics to interpret it, um, as if it has already a preconceived, um, or given it a preconceived meaning, because it is using something called machine learning intelligence. Now, machine learning, as it is defined here in these two different ways, I guess. One is that it is considered intelligent algorithms that calculate trends, value, or other characteristics of specific things based on historical data, which means whatever it has been experiencing through users' behavior, it is collecting it and making it appear as if it is a continuation, or it is something that is mapped in its memory as a hard-coded intelligence. Then you've got it. Also, machine learning looks at patterns in queries, detections, and identification of spams or duplicate contents, and so on. So when people are doing SEOs or they are trying to stuff words, keywords into captions and paras, the search has the ability to understand the meaning under those headings, for instance, for that paragraph that needs to have some relationship with the headings or those captions, to make it appear as if it is not primarily used to stuff keywords, but has a sense to it, or has a sequence of information that correspond to what the caption is. So it understands all of that, and therefore it is able to detect a lot of things which otherwise would be considered as literal, but when the cognitive factor kicks in, it is trying to give it a more profound meaning or a more deeper meaning, uh, and the relationship that it is understood as having a having a meaning. That's where it is going to set its coding or its algorithms to measure that or measure against. Right. Then we've got another intelligence in the search that is still evolving. I don't know if you have noted that if you put something as a question in your search bar, it is not actually understood as a question, like in the sense when you look at the return results, you would see that it is not answering the question, but basically treating it as a statement, which could be a mix of answers, or the Wikipedia would show up, or some other return results that are not exactly answering the question, but using those words as part of its content or body of text. So there is this issue of understanding the question itself so that the search is capable of answering it directly. They have made an attempt to use or to interpret questions as if they are, you know, they're collection of what people ask generally, and therefore you get a box that says or that has a number of questions that is appearing. It is got a thread to it where you click on those questions and there is a drop down which gives you a more subset of the main questions, and then another subset of the subset, it keeps getting created and it builds those threads. So they're working towards it, but basically when the search engine started, they were not meant to understand the question with the question mark or with using words like what, where, when, how, and so on. So one of the things that is confusing from the semantic perspective is that one person can ask the same question in two different ways, or two different people would ask the same question but phrase it differently. So how does the search engine react and consider one thing to have similarity or dissimilarity? So what search is working on is starting to look at the answers or the retrieved results against those search queries or those questions, and mapping it to the question itself to establish a relationship of answers that are being delivered against certain questions that are not exactly phrased in the same way. So, for example, if there is a question, how are you? The answer is, I'm fine. Versus question two, which says, how old are you? So these two are different questions and the answers are different. So when the answers are different, they're semantically different. However, if you look at question two and three, one has asked the question, how old are you? Versus what is your age? So in both the cases, even the questions are phrased differently, but they are semantically similar only because the answer is the same. And this is just an example. This, don't take it literally and then insert it and run a query. This is for explaining where semantically different and semantically similar questions are mapped. And this is also part of the MLI, which is a machine learning intelligence. So there's these two and three are semantically similar. Answers are matched against different ways of answering, asking the questions. Okay. The textual query or anything that is asked using the keywords alone are something that has the natural language recognition algorithms running. I want you to understand this part because I have a technology background. I've worked on the algorithms. So I can tell you that in the search engine, there is no concept of one single algorithm working. There are sequence of different algorithms that are triggered only because it has understood something or it has a trigger that is set to allow for certain algorithms to work either together or with the priority or are prioritized, and they go as a process. So there is far too many algorithms running all at once. One of them is, let's say, a natural language recognition. Now, what is a problem with, or what is the reason why we are learning about intelligence? And I didn't want to repeat it, but let's say that you would be aware of the behavior of search engine in terms of how it is going to deliver the results by understanding beforehand the characteristics or nature of how it is programmed and what could be some of the barriers uh, that would that are hard coded and therefore are going to act in a similar way repetitively. And because you understand the pulse of it, you would be able to also foresee what could be the results or what could be the expected results. And perhaps that way you can correct it or improvise on it or can be more creative. So that is the reason why we need to understand these semantics. Now, one of the the natural language recognition, there are certain barriers like lexical barriers. This is one barrier. Treating the word board as a noun or as a word, for instance. Then there is a syntax level barrier, which means that if one has to use the term, he lifted the beetle with a red cap, did he use the cap to lift the beetle? Alternatively, he lifted a beetle that had a red cap. So this could be actually a question for the search engine really to interpret or to make its own decision. So there is this syntax level or how you have phrased it. Then there is a referential barrier, referencing to something using pronouns. For example, Jane went to John. She said, "I am tired." So exactly who is tired? Now, this part or whatever is considered are barriers of three different types. Not that you would have a question in the exam that's going to ask you if it is a lexical barrier or syntax or referential. None of that is going to happen to confuse you or to test you on this. But this is FYI for your information only. What you would have the understanding for is the definition or what lexical barrier stands for versus syntax versus referential. So that's just the distinction or differentiation. That is why we are trying to explain these three different barriers. Now, since we have talked about intent or context or anything that translates the meaning or gives meaning to your search query, there are two concepts, intent and context, which is what we are going to, be focused on moving forward. Um, I'm going to explain to you intent and context because we will be working on both of these, okay? And it will be part of your keyword search, this topic of keywords and, phrasing your search queries will depend on how well you understand intent and context. The query, for instance, where people use two words, say market and research. So together it could be a market research, or if you sort of separate them, then the market has a different meaning and research has another meaning. So, where we are imagining or assuming that the search engine is going to use these two terms, we'll have to understand that the search would have a pre-built or a preconceived marking for using these two words together as more popular or having meaning in different ways, either as you're looking for something that is a definition or you're looking for job or whatever it may be. But if market and research are combined together, it's only because search engine thinks it to be more popular together versus using it as a single word. So assuming these two words are used, the query is still incomplete because it lacks the intent translation for the search engine, or you could say the intent translation could have far too many combinations of or far too many ways in which market research term is queried. For instance, if we have to give it a better intent or make it more precise for the search engine, we would want the intent to be translated as if you are looking for a definition or you're looking for a job, you know, whatever it may be. So your intent has to be Understood. And for the intent to be translated correctly, you need to give it a context or add additional words to give it a meaning enough that it would give it sense or give sense to your query of two words. So context in this case is highlighted here with two words, jobs and the word Los Angeles. If I added a context, job in Los Angeles alongside market research, I have made my intent very clear to the search. I have added the context to establish that uh, to give it a better meaning. So context is added. Context, we will study more in the sense of what part. See, when we talk about context, and we are actually explicitly mentioning the word jobs in Los Angeles, there could be additional sort of context that the search engine would add on its own. For instance, it would look at the location, it would look at, um, you know, different, what we call implied context. So implied is a context which will be added. Let's just handle it later, but for now, let's just stick to context. And next thing we will see is that it is going to start to, just because it has a better context, you will have predict algorithms kick in, which means while you're writing these words, it is going to give you a drop down and make you search for better combinations or something that it could be suggesting for you. And when these are coming to you as a drop down, it's only because your context you know, is there and it has a better context or it has added the context, and therefore you will get more meaningful drop down. So you make sure that the context is clear enough. Once you submit the query, you get your results returned, and the sequence in which they are laid out in your SERPs will depend on the algorithms that we call ranking algorithms, which is another complexity of how the search engine decides on which of these snippets to occur in the sequence that it is showing, which would be first, second, third, or fourth, and so on. So when we talk about ranking, we would be looking at some of the attributes or some of the elements that would impact the ranking of what you get returned in snippets. When the ranking algorithms kicks in, we will only talk about these four different types of characteristics we call authority, freshness, originality, popularity. But in the true sense of what could be the other elements, it's hard to, cover them all because there are close to about 200 signals that are set or are built in the ranking algorithms. And we are only going to discuss four of them just to give you an idea of what these might entail. Authority, for instance, authority of these pages or the way in which these numberings are set will depend on the authority of those links, meaning that besides and beyond just um, matching of the search terms, there is another element because search terms can be matched in thousands of different documents. Okay, 3 words, 4 words, 5 words, but which of those pages are going to be ranked or be listed for your review will depend also on the authority, or the authority will have a precedence over those pages that are of less authority. What authority means is that that page is coming from a very authentic or very credible resource. It could be educational institutions with the extension of .edu at the end. It could be military, government. It could be research. Could be anything that has about enough authority of understanding for the search engine to first of all look at the source itself, and the second thing or few other things I can mention, like if the links from other websites are pointing to this particular website, which is given a higher ranking or a higher authority, will depend on, where those links are coming from. Are they coming from authentic sources? Then there is internal content relationship with where it is pointing to. If your page has references, or it has citations, or it has anything that makes that page appear as if whatever is written on it has got a reference, or is cross reference to a credible authority, that's going to add to the authority as well. And then there is another thing we call freshness, which means that the robots, when they're fetching, or the crawlers, when they're fetching those documents, it is looking for updating it or replacing it with what they have gathered from before, or it could be something new. But the content itself is what is compared when the pages are brought back, to see if the content is fresh enough, is current enough. It's going to look at its date and timestamp. It is also going to look at whether the story is plagiarized, or it is recycled, or anything that may be something which has been used from before will not account for the freshness. So anything that is new author that is giving a content that frequently changes, that would be favored, or that site would be favored. Then there is originality, the ability of the search engine to know whether the information is collected from third party, or it is reproduced, versus whether it is created or it's a new creation. So the originality with the author name, date of upload, and all those elements put together will give it the originality. Then we've got the popularity of the page, which means if a lot of people are visiting that page, or that page has a higher ranking based on the frequency with which people are accessing it, or where the links are pointing to this page a lot, or where certain popular keywords are part of that search, are part of that index pages, would make it more popular. Or if it is a trendy site where, or it's seasonally, a lot of people usually comes to that specific page or that website, will make it more popular. So while all of these attributes are probably maybe about 5% or 2, even less, because it's just 4 of them. There could be far too many, but we are not worried about the ranking algorithms. However, we are aware of what gets returned to us may have the issues of credibility, freshness, originality, and popularity. So these elements, even as a user, is of importance to actually look at whether these factors are covered in our search results or not. Then this we don't have to worry about. What the search engines algorithms do, where two people are asking the same questions, it is going to pick certain words, or it is going to pick certain attributes, or certain elements, or certain combination of words, and give it or derive meaning out of it, even when two people are asking the same question in two different ways. Say, as an example, if someone says Empire State Building height, okay, versus how high is the Empire State Building. Now, the main emphasis, or the primary word which is going to give it the better context, is not just the noun or the word Empire State Building. This is more like a relationship of Empire State Building to the word high or height. High is what is driving, or what is telling the search, the intent, or what is it that you want to find in relationship to the Empire State Building. Okay. So this one that is in yellow, that is highlighted in yellow color, is what the search engine is going to pick. So two things, Empire State Building and high. These two are important. Empire State Building and height is important. The one that is in green color, we call these stop words, and I think we've discussed it before when we're doing simulations. And these words are not as consequential or as useful for the search to interpret. So you have to make sure and be mindful that you have used the context such as high or height in these two cases. Just as an example, we've used it, but you would know which would be the words that would give a proper meaning with relationship. So relationship and the meaning. If even if you wrote two words Empire State Building height, it would be sufficient. You don't have to phrase it as a question. Context can be of two types. One is explicit, which is what you have written, or it is linguistically expressed in search phrases and search terms. That is explicit or explicitly defined. Then there is another meaning which we call implicit, or what is imposed or what is assumed or is preconceived, that is added to your search. So at all times, you have to know that the search results will always be biased only on account of the fact that there is the implied or implicit context that will be added. What could be those implicit contexts? That's where we are going to uh, explain it a lot better. So the explicit signals would be, what you have written, whatever your query is, including your search operators or whatever is in the entire stem of your search query that is written by you or typed into the text box is explicit, or explicit signals that you're giving to the search. When you're doing that, you have to be mindful of two concepts or two relationship. And this is actually what we are going to be talking about when we do keyword or keyword searches. In keywords or the search terms that you're building using more than a few words, can be divided into primary context and secondary context. So primary context is something that is is the reference or the main subject, or it is the object of your search. So primary context means that those are the words that you cannot change, replace, or even, you don't move those words. Those are the words that would, if you take them away, it would defeat the meaning of the query or give it a different sense. So primary keywords are the words you're not going to change. Secondary keywords are modifiers or something that you can substitute, replace, or even add to. So those are secondary. Or all of a sudden, when we're giving explicit signals, we have to be mindful that primary context and secondary context are put together one next to each other. Usually, primary and secondary context go hand in hand, just so that your intent translation is more accurate. Those are explicit signals. This is an example that's extracted from, again, from the keywords that we are going to do. When we are talking about primary and secondary context or explicitity of primary and secondary context, we can go a little bit deeper and be more granular about what are the different elements of primary keywords. So ideally, I mean, there could be this way of understanding how individual words can be separated and be considered as elements of a search phrase that would make certain words primary and certain words secondary. But to do that, we have to look at three elements or three ways in which, and we have used these three words, Internet Research Certification, as the simplest format. We didn't want to make it complicated at this stage, but later on, you can have as a head word, you can have two words or three words combined together, and you can make it a head word. But what is a head word to begin with? In the sense of how head word is used in the first, or yes, you can call it the first row, that the word internet is non-replaceable. It has to exist in this query. Never mind the vertical bars. Think of it as if they don't exist for now. Okay. That's what illustration has, just only to separate them into three words, but nothing to do with the query or nothing to do with OR operator as a boolean. So none of that. Internet in this case is a head word, which means if you remove this, the words research and certification together would not be able to translate the meaning or give the meaning um, to the search for its understanding it as an internet research. Rather, it would be research certification, could be any kind of research, not specific to internet. So internet is a head word and therefore cannot be replaced. The second word could be a modifier, something that can be replaced, not removed, but replaced, meaning that research can be changed to search, I guess. So you could do that. And these are restraints that we have to actually document and in case, and specifically in relationship to where the work is to be delegated to, let's say, your staff or colleagues or anyone that needs to do research, you have to identify or itemize them into head, modifier, and tail so that the focus of search remains intact and there is no concept of, or there is nobody straying out of the main the search elements. Because there is always a tendency, if somebody is doing research, especially on the internet, they keep using different words, and a lot of time get wasted, and you have to be very specific and you have to be very clear about what could be the head words or modifier or tails. Why we do that is, number one is that head word, they know they cannot change, so they are confined. Modifier, they have that luxury. And then there is another set of words we call tail words. Tail words are additional context or contextual words that you can keep adding to, which means that you have no embargo placed on it. It can be replaced or it can be added to. So what you have told your researcher to do is to make sure that these two words remain intact, or where research can only be replaced so that the meaning is not compromised, and the word certification can be replaced, can be added to. So anything beyond research is something of a tail nature that can be added to. There is a concept of short tail, which means that not too many words are available. Lesser the number of words, the more tight the search is and more broad the return results are. Tight search with broad results means that less words, yet you got a lot of, you know, you get a lot of results only because your search is broad, because it is not explained enough or it is not as specific. It lacks a lot of context, and you sometimes you do it on purpose because you're exploring the subject. Other times you know exactly what you want and you're precise in getting what you need. And therefore, you use less words and more objective words. So here, modifier and tail. Now, in the second instance, you could even add more than one word to make it a head word. For instance, I can add internet and research together and call it a head word. I can, then move the next word, which was previously a tail word. Now it can become a modifier. And then there is a fourth word we have added as a tail word, which means anything that can be replaced, dropped, or added to. So these are, ways in which you can add more or make certain head or modifier put together to call it a primary context, which means it is got only head words in it, or it could be a secondary context, which means that it is only modifier. So modifier can be certification course also. But this is just one way of dissecting and identifying and itemizing those words to maintain a balance. And also when you want to be when you're strict in using or defining the terms for your search results. Anything that uses less number of words is short tail. anything that has got a longer or a more refined or a more precision created because of added context or more added tail words, we call it long tail. Short tail is broad search query. Long tail is more refined or it is more focused, or we called precision search query. So that is long tail. Anyway, we are more interested in identifying primary context and secondary context. And this is with reference to explicit queries that you're writing, that you're inserting in your search key, in your search box. What impacts implied, or what are implicit or implied signals that the search engine looks for and uses its own wisdom of understanding or knowing you better as a user, give you a better user experience, they call it. But basically, it's going to have a bias, or it is going to have an impact on what results are returned. Remember that the search engine at all times, even at the time when you are writing a search query or you've not even finished writing it, it is understanding from what is getting written to give it or to trigger certain algorithms. It is thinking that it needs to be ready for returning results based on certain algorithms, which may be different or act differently depending on what is being typed. So the algorithms are, like chords in a piano, and they are different based on what you are looking for or what sound you want to hear. So remember that, just keep that in your mind. Now, implicit signals is a relationship which is created with the user in a more customized way so that the algorithms that it's going to apply by identifying you as a user, they know whose characteristics or whose behavior it has mapped already in the history of its collection of information while using the browser and so on and so forth. So it is creating that relationship and it is setting up the algorithms or getting them ready to bring you results, which, by the way, are different for you as a user whose data or whose behavior or record it has collected, and therefore we're calling it more customized. And if the same search keyword is used by anybody else, or it is used from a location that is geographically distant from where you're searching from, let's say, another country, or anywhere outside of that territory, you would get slightly different results. Likewise, if you're using a different language to write, or the keyboard you're using is in Arabic or is in French or any type of language which is other than English, then uh, if you write them or write the same query in that language, it is going to deliver different results. So all of that is being considered as biased or more customized for or individualized. All that behavior comes from implied context or a context that the search engine has imposed in or attributed to you as a user. The signals which add to that implicity is explained or is itemized here. We broadly call them context, but this is, in other words, it's an implicit context. Okay. So implicit signals can be your location, your search history, your mobile device usage, the contact information, like users' personal information, for instance. When you register, when you put your basic information for, and your login and all that, at that point, it is collecting certain information. It is also gathering information, because remember, the browser itself is just a medium or just a temporary place for you to interact with the internet, or it is a real estate given to you to use, or it is lended to you for using it for any kind of browsing. It could be social media, it could be anywhere, your emails, anything that you do, all activities are inside of that browser environment. And because you are, your entire behavior of or relationship or interaction is information for the browser. It is collecting it, and it is not only collecting it, but it is also going to use it to give you the results, or give you or add to your explicit results by understanding the implicit signals, and therefore add to or change or give you different results. These are some of the ways or some of the things that it is going to consider or keep, use it as a reference to customize it for you, or to okay, so calendar information, application use history, purchase history, favorites, bookmarks. These are, some of the utilities that look totally harmless and looks like freebies for anyone to actually indulge and therefore use it as an added feature. I don't use it much because it sort of it you know it conflicts with the search that I'm doing. It somehow gives it that profound implicity of bias by acting on its own and imposing I guess, uh, context of its own. Let's just call it context. So I don't want that because I'm doing my search as a researcher doing it consistently. I don't want it to be customized for myself as an individual, but rather I need a more neutral platform. So I don't really enjoy it as much, and I don't use those utilities because it does impact the results that I get. So I literally sometimes I have to neutralize my browser. Other times I use another browser. Sometimes intentionally I use a third account to browse, let's say, out of United States or on the Eastern European side. Sometimes I use a different browser like Yandex, for instance, instead of Google when I'm Googling in Ukraine, or for anything to do with Ukraine or that part of the world or Eastern European side. So I keep doing that, and I keep looking at the browser to and make sure that it is neutralized enough that it won't impact the search results. That's why I don't use, I don't do any purchase using that browser, bookmarks, none of that. I use none of these. But anyway, these are, the implicit signals. Now, in this example, we are going to look at what could be considered explicit and implicit in terms of, building your search queries, so you can differentiate the explicit signals by separating primary context, secondary context, and look at some of the ways the implicit context is added. These are very simplified examples. Explicit signals or explicit context. That's the example we are going to run with these two columns. And the word Java is where we're going to start with, and we're going to differentiate primary and secondary context under the explicit context. So let's suppose we start with the word Java. First of all, I don't think we do search with just one single word. Usually people use more than one word. So let's suppose we're just starting with Java. It would not have enough context that would complete the search or convey the meaning. So I have to look at Java as a word in three different ways. One, that it could be a software, could be a coffee, or it could be an island Java in Indonesia. Wait a second. Why did it jump? Let me go back. Sorry about that. Why is this not going away? Okay. So these three different variations of how the Java term is used would require for the word Java to be differentiated as well as to be, combined together to at least make it two words, either Java software or Java coffee or Java island. So Java software or Java coffee, I have to select. Supposing I select Java software. Okay. So I use the term Java software, that would become my primary context, because primary is where I have defined exactly the reference to which everything else will correspond to or will give context to. So, Java software would mean that the secondary context can be either a training program, a training, or it could be a program. Java is also a programming language, or Java software training could be, more on the educational side. So between the two, I have to decide to give it the secondary context. Now, supposing I use Java software and training as a context. This is explicit context. That's what I've written, for instance, in the query. But guess what could be the implicit context or added context? It could be the location, because when we are doing search from, let's say, sitting in California, somewhere in Los Angeles, I would be getting results that are coming from a local or location that is in the closer vicinity or around that area. So it becomes more on a localized search. That is part of the implicit context or implicit signals. It would also bring the prices automatically when we do right training. It could be the price that I'm looking for or how much it's going to cost. Maybe a little bit of review about those training sites or any location that is around the Los Angeles area. I would also get information about reputation or opinion or something of this sort. So all that it is bringing back to me with the word training and program is on the commercial side. It's thinking that perhaps I'm looking for opportunities to look for venues where I can actually get the training or learn about the program. If I use the word coffee, it could be the location, the store hours, and so on. The secondary terms could be the secondary context could Tim Hortons, could be coffee bar, coffee beans, whatever it may be. So the important thing is that the intent semantics or the kind of information that the search thinks or assumes that I would need that would add to my convenience as a user, it is going to use those cards or those algorithms. So here, when the coffee shop or coffee bar I'm looking for, location store hours comes in. If it is the island is what I selected as a primary context, and the secondary could be Indonesia. It's going to bring me tours, touristy places, and so on, travels, holidays, visits, and so on. So all these that are added in or considered in this box as generally the kind of imposed or added, assumed um, context, it's just going to that's going to be added to my search results. And therefore, it would have an impact on what I get to see versus what somebody else is seeing, say, on the East Coast, New York. But when you're doing your research work, sometimes you don't need this implicit or implicity to act as a barrier or as an influencer. Then you have to use certain or use a minus sign or eliminate certain words. You have to be more creative with the operators to nudge your query or to make it more explicit. You can add more context to it just to get rid of that implicity that is imposed implicity by the search engine. Factors, some of the factors that would be added or considered for giving meaning, the implicit meaning is the language you're using. Obviously, the word semantics, the culture, like certain words are censored, certain words are filtered out. In KSA, for example, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I know doing search, using certain wordings that are part of the censorship or culturally not acceptable as having, like anything that you're going to write, let's say, against the monarch or against the kings over there, that's going to be, you know, that's a taboo that will not be accepted. The geopolitical situation, the privacy, the geography, location, history, terms, popularity, season, and all that. We'll discuss some of these, not all of them, but implicit factors are going to be what is harmful or considered barrier that we have to neutralize. And the other Okay, so this is just the explanation of what we did already. So not to worry about it. But more important is to look at the implicit context in the case when we did the query with the coffee bar, for instance. It is going to find information based on location, which will be mapped through your IP addresses, postal code, city name, GPS, etc. So whatever signals are, if you've got your GPS open or your location is open, that's going to have a very huge impact on your search. So be aware of that. Then you've got in the search session, it is going to look at websites, cost, price, reviews, ratings, social media. All of these are going to be impacting or will have an impact. Like if you're searching for a product, let's say, or a laptop as an example, and you're looking at cost or prices, it is going to be in the memory or in the short term memory. If it is recent search where the session is in continuation, or where you have recently in the past month or so, you have searched something or that specific model of a laptop, and it knows that it is, some, and you have searched for it more than a few times. That's going to create a strong impression for the search engine to think that anytime you're looking for a laptop, it's going to keep bringing that Toshiba laptop, for example, model XYZ, whatever it may be. And it is also automatically going to trigger advertisements. It is going to trigger reviews, anything that is associated with the product purchase, or it's a commercially inclined, commercially associated kind of query, or where you are just looking for a Toshiba, let's say a refrigerator or something different, it is still going to bring, all that information that has to do with e-commerce activity. Your favorite store is going to come up, where you have browsed before is going to come up, and so on and so forth. So all of that is in the short term and long term history, that is will impact your search results, meaning that you wouldn't get any information on Toshiba, which is to do with the technology itself or something else that you are let's say the information about the company that you are referring to. Um, Instead, it will just keep bringing you to the e-commerce or to the transactional side just because you have searched for the laptop earlier. So that's where you need to, be able to neutralize it, or you have to somehow get rid of that history so that, it is going to give you results that's slightly different from what you were experiencing. All that would be considered as having an impact in search results. Now, anytime you do your search, remember that while we are talking about context, anytime that you write a search query, it is not an absolute search, or it's not considered absolute enough, because you keep refining your search, you keep changing, adding words. You just have to keep looking at the return results to somehow figure out where you're going wrong, or if there is a context missing, or you can actually learn from the results. Two things. One is things that you don't need, so you can filter them out, and then emphasize with better wordings, or better phrased search terms, to see what is expressed or what is returned to you that makes sense, so that both things are separated and your query is refined the second time. So a single session is not sufficient. Anytime that you're doing search, you keep improving on it. And this is just one example. It's not very difficult to learn. It's just letting you know that you pretty much have to keep improving on your search results as a process, rather than just one event of writing it. So if there was the cat jaguar, that or a jaguar is the word you're using, it could be a cat or it could be a car, a brand of car. Then you can see, look at the results, and you can figure out that with the results, you can see if your snippets are showing something which is what exactly you need, but it is using two words like automobiles and cars. But if the frequency of using the word or what is appearing more frequently in the results that is to your knowledge is more satisfying is um, replacing the word car with automobiles as more preferred term or more better result, then you better be using automobile instead of car, or you can use the or operator to write automobile or car. uh, if you are looking for a showroom and you want to make it a local search, then you're going to use the word local and then look at the results. And so it continues. So A, B, C, D, E, and F until you have made it long enough, or it has now become from a broad search query or a less number of words to more number of words, or you've added more context and made it a long tail uh, uh, search query, and you have used or defined, or you have learned from your results and you have added more context. So eventually at the time when you reach F, which is when we are writing the model and everything, you have actually added more context and made it more precise. Okay. Power words and symbols. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pause for 5 minutes more. I think there's a lot of information, and I think I've explained it quite a bit. How do you like the pace of delivering the lecture? Do you think that I should go slow? I can take a vote on it, or do you think that it is too much information and it's too fast? I mean, we can fine tune it. We can make it better depending on. Okay, so Isha is good. All right. So if you don't mind, I'd take 5 minutes more, and then I'm also going to take another 10, 15 minutes over the time of 8 p.m. I hope that's not going to be a bother. Unfortunately, I have to actually be on the phone. Something is getting delivered at my home this time, and I just want to make sure that everything is good. So it won't be more than a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes. So please take a break yourself as well. I'll be back in 5 minutes exactly. Thank you. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry for the delay and the wait. Let's continue with some of the context that you can give to your search terms by adding or using certain wordings that the search understands or thinks of it or interprets this as a part of, you can make it a short search by using this. From to, for example, date range, price range, you can use these words if you're not using operators. You can use words like book title, author, idioms. So words that the search would consider power words, or certain symbols also are there, but they are not discussed in this slide. We'll look at them later, but these are, the ones that are in the same color, for instance, are got a similarity, like area code, location, local, map, city, in blue color. Calculating something, stock, calculate, compare, or using VS versus, you can extract a lot of information. So these are for reference only. These are not actually mentioned in the book. I'm assuming that it's only in the slide. But that's just to give you that familiarity with certain words that impacts your results greatly. You don't have to write long queries. You can always use them as a reference, but it's not part of your exams, and because they're not in the book. So when you are doing search, there is something called internet bubble, where two people, assuming that there is one person and named Alex, and he's searching something from say one part, North America, assuming, and Corey is in Eastern Europe. And they're using exactly the same keywords. They're using all the same things with the browser and anything that has got a similarity with how the conditions are set for your browser adjustments and your everything is the same, assuming. But when you are doing your search, the results you're going to get will be different for both of these people, just because they're doing their search from two different parts of the world. Okay. Um, it's not very complicated to understand. Whenever in the exam they're going to talk about what is considered internet bubble, they'll give you a choice, a multiple choice, and ask you two type of questions. One would be whether this condition or whatever is this is written as a question, gives you a condition and says what is the term used for it, you would know that this is internet bubble. Bubble is when it's like a silo, you are put in that bubble separate for querying from different regions. But the second question might be that how can you overcome this barrier? So they would give you a choice of privacy, anonymity, security, global reach. All these are some of the major headings or major areas in your browser which can be adjusted, or you are given that option to be able to make changes in these areas. So anonymity, privacy, security, just remember these: global reach, local reach, overcome language, so you can choose your language. um, Non-index, this is probably the last one, is not as important and probably not also considered something that we need to worry about. So these are the ones that we will have to remember. Okay. Next, we are going to look at exactly what are the different collections of information, or where certain information sets are short-term history and a long-term history. In this diagram, we move this, you could see how the semantics of implied context and some of the data that is collected from your browsing habit or your browsing instances is going to work towards, or is going to be coming down, as you could see with the arrows, to add to the intent translation, or to make that implied context interact with your search terms. That's where it is going to take you from the basic or the primary information in the top layer, which is going to be this part. And then we're going to keep going down and explain the deeper layers of context or implied context. The one on top can be divided into three parts or three different ways of collecting information. Now, even before we do that, let's understand short-term and long-term collection of data. Short-term is something that you have browsed for, or you're in the process of browsing recently. And while you're in the same session, or you've logged into your browser and you're doing your searches, it is going to be a short-term history. Long-term is a certain type of information that is kept, one as a permanent information when you're registering or giving out information for your personal profile. And the second part of long-term is certain type of searches that you do quite often, or something that you have searched for before or frequently searched for in the last few months. That is going to be a long-term history. Further, that history or that collection of information is separated, um, and in the grand view of it, a part of that information is actually collected on the search engine side, and a lot more is collected on the browser side. What goes to the search engine side is a meta information, or is, the overall information of, things like, the devices that you're using, the 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 browsing that you do using certain utilities, or the use of the Gmail account, how frequently you've used it, if it is a Chrome browser. Those meta, or top layer of information is collected on the search engine, while the more of a regular info, or more frequent or more detailed information is collected on the browser side. Browser is programmed in a way that it has arrays of history of information that is held inside of that browser that is sitting on your machine. So once you have started the session, that information is collected in the browser and resides in there as short term and long term. Uh, a little bit of it is sent to the search engine side. But apart from that, let's just look at the three different boxes, or the three type of information sets that's collected both in the long term and a short term sessions. Internet browsing data, for instance, this box collects details that are listed over here, like the time and date stamp of browsing, the browsing history, short term, long term, like where you went, your links are collected, the language you use, history of saved documents. This is all in the browser data collection. Okay, this is where we are separating browser data from personal profile and communication data. Your IP addresses, and so it continues. You don't have to remember the list, or you'll never be asked to itemize these different browsing data that is listed here. But this is for your information. But most importantly, that internet browsing data collection is separated, and it will be used in a different way to impact your search results. And then you have got profile and personal data information. When we talk about profile and personal data, we get the search engine has collected long-term, or information that is used on permanent basis, like your username, photo, birth date, passwords, autofill forms, remember your passwords, those are collected, payment methods, all that information which has to do with your profile or your personal information is collected and would impact your implied context. The last one is the communication data, which is this one, your emails, chat, social media interaction, and all of the meta information that relates to it. It's not going to go into your inbox and your individual emails to check where you're sending emails, but rather the use of that email box, the frequency of use of it, the volume of, what is, like how much of it are you using, things like that, the behavior, or information that would help the search engine environment, or Google itself is going to strategize or do their own marketing based on the meta information, or the top layer information on use of chat, social media, or anything that is used as utilities attached to, which is particularly communication utility. That data will be collected, and it would also have an impact in your search results. Then we go to layer 2. Once it has used all three boxes, it is going to go further down and try to look at the intent or behavior and make it or reinforce more of its implied or implicity that will be particularly customized to your behavior, such as personalization of, if you have personalized your browser in certain way, it is going to look at that. Localization, it's going to look at that. If it is local searches you do a lot, marketing aspect, what type of products and services you browse, trends, that you are interested in trends of certain type of goods and services, whether they're seasonal or not, But if you are frequently visiting something, or you are in touch with the trends, or you're looking at information which is more frequently being searched by everybody else, that's also going to be part of intent translation. Advertisements that you click on. So it is going from the top layer, now going to the deeper layer, the next layer. Furthermore, it is going to look at the analysis, or where the search is now in a position to interpret or suggest things for you in a predictive way, like suggestions that it will bring to you, related searches it brings to you, local area searches, which could be your favorite, autofill forms, people ask. So all these are utilities or assistive technologies that circle around the intent translation of a particular nature, because you are that specific, that you are one individual for which the search engine is trying to customize the user experience. So it is, going to keep adding to, or keep learning from your usage, to impact or to impose, or where it is required to apply the implied context. It is going to use all this information in the top two layers to produce these type of assistive or predictive results. People ask questions, or people also ask, you will probably get different set of questions versus somebody else. So this is just to give you an idea that it goes from one layer, top layer, to the next, to the next. And so it goes eventually the last layer, which is when it is going to start to impact your search. Your location is revealed, your legal implications, meaning that there is, regional barriers, or there is, cultural, socioeconomic situations, on the ground realities of how the censorship is like, all those legal implications will be affected. Content settings, which means that whenever you get something returned, that is actually now heading towards delivering the results. The content setting here means the nature of the pages, or the type of pages that would be impacted, uh, in terms of ranking. Like, you would get the ranking which is somewhat different from anybody else searching from another part of the world. So that ranking theorem will be impacted based on your all that it's information it's been collecting in different stages. And eventually it's the filter bubble that's going to be that's going to have a lot of a biased information coming to you. Location, history, language, automated usage, everything that is going to put you in that silo filter bubble. That's where you're going to get stuck. Um, at the time when you are writing your search query based on the wordings that you have used, remember I mentioned the triggers that impact or give or activate certain algorithms to deliver certain type of search results. That is all dependent on the way you are phrasing your search words. So even while you're typing, the search browser is collecting information and interpreting it as a type of query, or it is categorizing that query at the same time. And based on what it thinks would be the best trigger to actually switch on, let's say, one algorithm versus another one, will depend on these the nature of your wordings, whether it would know if it is a query that is navigational, for instance, or if it is informational, or is it exploratory, or it is transactional. If it is navigational, what it means is that you would know where you want to go. So basically, you have given it enough context, you have given it or maybe it's just a link that you want to click on, or perhaps it is a domain name that you know of, so you know where you want to go. When you are typing something as explicit and as easy to to go to, it will be considered navigational queries. And the results or the algorithms that will trigger the results will be different. Okay. So if it is a navigational query, if it is interpreted as navigational based on the wording, you would get different results. If it is something that you have typed, which is of transactional nature, or we call it transactional query, it would be things like, looking for a product or services of a specific type. The search in that case would call it or would look for something that is of e-commerce nature, or would be more of a marketing or advertisements that's going to be thrown at you. And therefore the search is now, turning on a different type of algorithm to bring you the results, just because you have used certain terms like, name of a product or service, or anything that is of commercial nature. It would know it's transactional can be either commercial or it could be a purchase, meaning that as you type more, it would know if you are ready to buy something, or you're looking to compare the products, or look for certain products, or find anything that is not really for you to purchase at the moment, but you are looking for something which is product or service. It would know that it is a commercial query, or it has a commercial nature to it, and different algorithms will be triggered. If it is to do with purchase, meaning that you have gone to a certain site which carries in its I guess, which carries in its what they call shopping cart any product, or where you have clicked on something recently or previously, you have checked on a price on something, it would know that it has to do with the purchase. So it will bring that websites, or the results would have more of that specific website. For instance, if it is Amazon that you frequently go to for certain products, or if it's Best Buy, it would know already and would bring those results which are different from navigational query. Similarly, if you're doing research and you are exploring an idea or exploring something which the search would know immediately, if certain you know if you start with a broad search with using few words, and then from one site you're going to the next one, but it is not transactional and it is not navigational, but it is more of exploratory nature, it would know and it would trigger and it would bring results which would have been identified with the query type, that is informational query. So this behavior of how you phrase something or you put something in your search box would have an implicity or implicit context attached to it based on the written words, and based on how the search engine would get prepared to trigger certain type of algorithms to bring that specific set of results. So navigational, transactional, informational, exploratory, commercial, you have to understand at least four of these to be able to answer a question in the exam. Um, and I would say that, in fact, we have it in the book and it is explained even in more detail. So for now, intent-driven search queries or intent translation is probably understood better when you uh, know the behavior, and you can pretty much control this behavior by knowing beforehand what should be. What chapter in the book is it? Okay, that's what Christian is asking. So let me break out of here and open up the book for you. So if you are, and see, because the book is digitized, it's PDF, you can always do Control F and look for the term. The moment you're going to type words like semantics, should be able to get to it. The chapter that we are discussing today, which includes this topic, is chapter 3, and it is talking about search engine textual represent query recognition intelligence. I believe it's chapter 3 and 4. Both chapters are being covered today. So, chapter 3 has types of intent based search queries, and it's on page 41. Long way to go. We have close to 500 pages in the book. Short term, long term, all these diagrams are in the book. See, we've got them all in here. Okay, so the next thing that we'll be discussing is keywords, and then after that, we would be starting with, in fact, starting from the next class, we'll be doing Boolean operators. So it's all going to have to do with the query building, which will make it even more interesting. So far, it is uh, a lot of it is on the descriptive side. But once we get to the search queries and search operators, I'm sure it'll become more exciting. So for now, I think as far as a lot of theory is concerned or the concepts are concerned, we are on a very strong footing with understanding the basics or at least the concepts that would help us a lot in building search queries. So this part we've finished already. I'm also reviewing what we got done just so that I can keep my bearings and make sure that we are heading in the right direction. So um, the next chapter would be assistive and predictive search. Okay. So once we get done with this part, we've got keywords. So we'll see if we can wrap up keywords today, if possible. So what is predictive, suggestive? When we are doing this part, well, looking at this diagram, we did cover it where it says create analysis of intent, meaning that now intent would be best translated by giving out assistance through predictive and assistive technology of producing uh, results that include suggestions, related searches. Okay, so suggestions and so predictive. Let's look at the predictive part. One of the predictive technology is I guess you can relate to what you see in the SERPs when the search results come back to you. You see things like people also ask, see this box appears. Um, the questions are compared with previously searched questions by a global users is that correlate to the search terms used. So, it's not all the time that you get to see this box. There are few times, or at least, well, like, depending on how you have phrased your search question, these boxes start to appear. Certain words that you use, the people also ask, box does not appear. So it is very difficult to pinpoint what triggers it, but we can only assume, and my assumption personally is that certain words that become part of the question would make this box appear, or where those words are more frequently used as part of the question and is more popular as questions. That's what's going to trigger the appearance of this box. And this people also ask is one example of predictive search. Predictive or assistive. These two terminologies are used when the search engine delivers a helping hand and gives you, you know, mm, gives you a reference to, or gives you an assistance in bringing something similar to what you are asking so that it could help you further in refining your search. So this is people also ask. Another one is called search related to. when global users have searched something in the same pattern of sequential search. Difference is that the search related to would use the sequence of words in which you have actually written your original query. So explicit query that you have mentioned with the wordings that are set one next to another as a search phrase, that is what considered as for similarity with other popular searches that use somewhat similar sequence of words or similar words placed in the sequence of a phrase. So that's the search related to. Autocomplete, you can see while you're typing, if you have typed, let's say, one word. By the way, when you are doing autocomplete and you have used, let's suppose, and I'm just going besides the what is illustrated here, an additional piece of information. If you have searched something recently or a few days or even in the same session, particularly in the same session of when you actually logged into the browser and its recent history, those are the words that are going to show up when you start to type. Let's say one word starting with the word internet. And if you have, let's say, you know, search something that has to do with internet speed test, that's going to come in, or at least the first two or three words would be pulled from the history. The rest of it will be completed for whatever is left over because it's supposed to deliver 10 predictive or 10 suggestive words, 10 suggestive search phrases. It would, complete the rest of the grounds by adding its suggestions. uh, so if internet is what is written, it is going, and if it is just one word, it is going to give you all these, and you won't know where these are coming from. Like internet services, internet archive, internet, where is this coming from? So thing is that the less words you have written, the less of sense of what it would bring to you besides what is historically been collected, that is going to drive or complete the list. So it is more erratic and less of you know m- much less of meaning given to to a single word when you use. But if you keep writing and if you notice closely, the moment you're going to write more than one word, let's say you wrote internet research, you will get, different sets of results. They won't be the same. All of these are changing. So the meaning keeps changing. So internet research agency, jobs, on the brain, skills, all of these words are added to this word. And where these are coming from is difficult to, but it'll start to at least show you the most popular words that is being used frequently and recently. It is not something that you intend to write, but they are there. But the ones that make sense could be the ones or the words in the beginning that you have used recently, which would just jog your memory a little or connect with what you have been searching from before. But rest of it is more on the erratic side, or it is not consistent, or it is not a behavior that can be exactly understood to have some sense of how they're organized. I don't think we can do that. But here is a singular and plural situation. So if you want to find out how the search engine behaves with singular and plurals, you could take this example. For instance, if we wrote three words, internet research, certification, without using an S, so certification is a singular word, you would get less, you'll get different results, or you would get these results, which is what is shown with my recent searches I did. So let's say it was internet research specialist certification, right? So a specialist, it added because I've used it recently, or it's my history that's bringing these two words. But the moment I add an S or make it a plural, the word certifications is bringing me something different. It is not bringing me the word specialist. So that's where, singular and plurals do impact your search results. or at least your search history that is brought to you as a drop down or suggestive history would give you different results based on if you've used it as a singular or a plural. Okay. So keywords, I'm going to, hmm, okay. Now, what is the difference between keywords and a search phrase? That's what the difference is actually shown when we are looking at query one. Query one has three words. No quotation marks are enclosed. All of these words are individually placed one next to another, maintaining a sequence that we believe the search engine would understand as one single search term, with all three words maintaining their sequence of how they are one next to another. But because there is no enclosure, there is no restrictor to how these three words are to remain intact in the same sequence, we cannot control, or the search engine would have, on the other hand, would have the um, would have the freedom to select either each of these words individually as being part of your search results, or treat them in groups or in combinations, like internet research can be picked, or research specialists can be part of your results, whereas all three may not necessarily be part of your, or part of the results that has them placed as they are showing in your search. uh, Now, individually, these are called keywords. So in the case of three words outside of the quotation marks are considered three keywords. Internet research and specialists are keyword, and giving a lot of room to search engine to use them as it pleases, or to compare or match them as it wants, as a combination of words or as single words. And the ranking theorem, or the ranking of those results, will also not correspond to what your intention is, where you thought that all three would be brought as intact as a term with three words showing. So individually they are keywords, but if we enclose three of these inside of the quotation marks, we are restricting or making sure that all three become one search phrase or one search term, and they are matched exactly how they are placed, where research is in the middle, specialist is at the end. So there would be no mixing or no shuffling, or the sequence will be the same, or anything that we put inside of the quotation marks would be considered as a match, which is a mirror match literally of what is placed inside. So if I had anything like a question mark or notation or space or a dash or anything that is in between these words, that would also be considered as something that will be matched exactly the way they are set inside of the quotation mark. So if I can use this notepad and show you what I mean, if it is internet and I put them, let me just increase the zoom in. So if I have put a quotation mark here and I have placed a question mark here, for instance, question mark, by the way, are also part of the stop word. So they are basically, if I did not have this term in the inside of the quotations, then the search engine would ignore the question mark. If I wrote something like this, both and the question mark are stop words, and therefore they will not be considered for search, or the search would ignore these. a notation of a question mark, and the end will be totally ignored. If, however, I place them inside of the quotation, it will try to match everything in it, including the question mark and the A and D. So the entire set of words and the notation, everything in between will be matched as they are or however you have placed them inside of the quotation marks. I don't know, at this point, we are a little bit early in talking about the aesthetic, but because I guess Isha has asked about aesthetic before. Um, Let me give you one exception where whatever you have placed inside of the quotation as they are matched, the way they are set, or however they are placed in sequence or just by themselves as being stop words, is when we add the asterisk here. The asterisk notation itself would be, yeah, example we'll do later. We've got tons of examples on it, but let me just explain to you the concept. If you can gather the concept, there'll be sufficient at this point. All right. Just focus on the concept, please. The concept here is that when we are talking about everything that is inside of the quotation marks to be matched exactly as is, that would also have meant that the asterisk should be considered a symbol, and therefore it should be matched with something or a term that is exactly the mirror image of it, meaning that the quotation mark would not have a meaning ideally by principle or by the rule, should be considered as a mark that is to be matched for something that is to be found exact on the content pages or the index pages. But there is only one exception, which is the asterisk, that would give a different signal that will not allow for the search to take this symbol or this asterisk to be considered as a notation only, but rather have a meaning to find something that is missing, or a missing word can be replaced, or this could be called a placeholder, which is asking the search to fit in the right word that corresponds to or somehow has a meaning against or with reference to what is on the right side of it and what is on the left side of it. So this asterisk symbol, wildcard, we also call it, this is interpreted differently. Whereas if we had, instead of asterisk, we had any other symbol, like if we had a dash here, or we had, another, let's say, a notation, let's say, then what it would be asking by being inside of the quotation is to match it exactly the way it's written. And therefore, research dash specialist with a question mark will remain intact as a term that needs to be matched along with everything else inside of it, just the way it is written. So it is a forced enclosure of information that includes not only words, but could be any notations or symbols, which as a rule should be matched exactly the way it is written. But the only exception is the asterisk, and that is the only exception, nothing else. When we are giving it a restriction, asterisk will have a different behavior. Okay, that's all I wanted to explain. And the second thing that you have to also understand is that the quotation marks itself, whereas it has a meaning to enforce or to find exact same term, it can also work the same way with, let's suppose if we have terms like internet, and then we have research specialist, and let's use another example, internet, research, So, and just to make it easy for me to explain, I'm just going to give it a number. Just give me a moment here. Um, okay. So let's suppose we take 4, 5, and 6 as an example of using the quotation marks. When we are putting these three words within quotes, it is called one term, one search term. Okay. So it's going to be matched as it is written. In the second instance, we have put a single word internet within quotation marks. What is different between putting internet in quotes versus putting research and specialists outside of quotes? What would be the impact of it? The impact would be that here we are talking about one term plus two keywords. That's how I would write it, or that's how I would explain it. Only because this one has become a term that is actually forced now for the search to bring back in the search results. So it has become a mandatory return. Whereas the words research and specialists are not mandatory, they are not forced to be included in the search results. However, the search is given the freedom without putting any of these in quotations to use either a single word right next to internet, or to have in those pages the word internet appear or be matched with, let's say, the word research or specialist. um, the only thing that we have to remember is that once you put an individual word or a keyword inside of the quotation mark, it is enforced. Those that are outside of the quotation mark are not enforced to be a mandatory return. Therefore, research can be one word that would appear, or specialist can appear with the word internet. However, internet will always be there. So we have forced internet whereas research and specialist has become optional. Research and specialist can be combined together, or it can be reshuffled as specialist followed by the word research, or the word research might be totally missing, or the word specialist might be missing, but internet will have to be there. So that's how we are going to use the quotation marks in a sort of a different way, or its other advantage is to enforce the presence or ensure the presence of the word internet in the results. Similarly, if we look at the query 6, what have we done here? We have used three words all inside of the quotation marks, but there is a difference between 4 and 6 in terms of what the results would bring and the quantity of results that you will get to see. What is the differentiator between 4 and 6? What will happen that in 4, all three will be matched. Okay. In the sixth query, the content page would probably be satisfied with matching or having three words in the content page, but not necessarily place one next to another as laid out in the single search phrase internet research specialist, but rather these could be scattered word, or these could be present there in the content pages, but may not be considered as a single search phrase. So what you have done in 6 is made sure that the return results are mandatorily or are strictly asked to be present in the results, but may not be in the sequence as in query 4. Right? Any questions on this part? Because this is important. Hmm. Okay, so I think we have actually spent a lot of time today. I'm sorry about that. It's like, taken a lot of your time. Um, We'll have to continue with this part, and then we have to use the quotation marks to actually run some search queries in the next session. And then, we will also cover what Isha is asking when we start to use the quotations. Sometimes, well, anyway, I just don't want to continue anymore because I've taken a lot of your time. Let's just meet a day after tomorrow, and I'll continue from here. This is very important lecture. The next one you will find extremely useful. I actually emphasize quite a bit on using the quotation marks. Sometimes we use it. Sometimes we intentionally don't use certain words placed inside of the quotes, and other times we ensure that certain other words are placed inside of the quotation. So though that distinction needs to be made, unless we have this concept cleared up, we won't be able to use any of the operators as intended, or it will not bring the correct results. So next day after tomorrow, we'll meet and we'll complete this part. So thank you very much for your time. If there's any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to do it now. Thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, or good day, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you for your time.